our worldview of Tawheed. That our creed has transitioned into the modern world pristine and preserved. And likewise our understanding of the prophets. That this is one of the greatest gifts of all, is that this is still there. And this is the foundation of knowledge. If you have that, then you are able to build on everything that comes after that. Without that, that you will constantly be confused, and even when you're exposed to different types of knowledge, you won't have the conceptual framework to be able to integrate it into a way of viewing the world that will be able to benefit you and then benefit other people. This is why our Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min, that wisdom is the lost property of the believer. What is understood in this? Dalla is your lost property. It refers to sheep and livestock in particular, but in general, any type of wealth or property. When our Prophet said this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is understood and implied in this hadith is that there's a relationship of possession. Meaning is that the believer, that when we understand knowledge, even if it be from an alternative epistemology, if it be from that research that we didn't necessarily do, or be from that something that is foreign to our way of seeing things, we can still take from that, benefit from it, but the idea of possession is that you come to possess that piece of knowledge when you integrate it into a worldview of Tawheed, belief in divine unity. And that only then, not only theoretically, but also experientially, right? Then it's truly possessed. But where are we in terms of our original creative thought as Muslims? This is a very serious issue. Where are we? We are there is different parts of the brain. You have the reptilian brain, you have the limbic system, which is about emotions, you have the cerebrum, which is where rational thought comes in. Is that what our Lord tells us in the Quran subhanahu wa ta'ala, that الَّذِينَ يُبَلِّغُونَ رِسَالَاتِ اللَّهِ وَيَخْشَوْنَهُ, those who convey the message of God subhanahu wa ta'ala and fear Him, وَلَا يَخْشَوْنَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ, and they only have fear of Allah. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ حَسِيبًا, and Allah is sufficient as a reckoner. La ilaha illallah. Look at the meanings of this verse. Allah is teaching us, telling us about those who convey the message. We have a message. Any way that you look at it, you cannot water down the deen. We are a faith of propagation. We have a message. Our Prophet, دَاعِيًا إِلَى اللَّهِ بِإِذْنِهِ, he is calling to Allah through His permission, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we are calling humanity to the highest thing possible that humanity can attain. That there is a call associated with us. But then what relates to that is that وَيَخْشَوْنَهُ, there's fear of God. And there's no fear of anyone except God, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That think about the power of it, the way that the brain works, and why is this significant, is that when you're in a state of fear, is that what happens is that the reptilian part of your brain takes over. And it leads to what is termed polarity thinking. You start thinking in dichotomies. It becomes black or white, fight or flight. This is the way that we've been wired. We have natural tendencies that procure pleasure and to ward off pain. That if you're always in a state of fear, is that you are not going to be able to be creative or rational in your way of thinking. And so our Lord is telling us, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that only fear Allah. Because then, that if your fear is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's balanced with hope. And that positive tension in your life between hope and fear is what's going to produce the greatest manifestation of that creativity and rationality that will come uniquely from you. But when it relates to people, is that this will stunt us as believers. And so that because of a number of reasons, but this inferiority complex that has come over us, and part of it has to do with fear, is that we are totally limiting ourselves into thinking is that everything is, Muslims are in the situations that they're in, and there's reasons why they're in, and our success is in A, B, and C, and that this completely taking on everything that comes to us from outside. That where is the original creative thought of integration, of synthesis, of scrutinizing things and of making contributions that are truly of benefit to people that no one is yet to do. That the doors are totally open for this. And that there's amazing things that can take place in that if we open up our minds to the way that we view things. And so that seeing our Prophet ﷺ is that there's a reality to the prophetic vision. And there is a number of hadith that are associated with it, and that this is a goal in of itself, is to have that. And you have scholars that have even combined the dreams that they saw about the Prophet ﷺ. That one of the Ibn Abi Jamrah, one of the great scholars of Islam, is that he did a mukhtasar, an abridgment of Sahih Bukhari, and then he wrote a commentary on that abridgment. And then that throughout his work that he mentioned a number of visions that he had about the Prophet ﷺ, and then he combined them, and it was printed in a book about all of these visions that he had about the Prophet ﷺ. They used to say about Izzuddin ibn Abd as-Salam is that he used to see the Prophet ﷺ every night in his dreams. Every single night in his dreams he would see the Prophet ﷺ. That there were people that were very close to him. If you most of our dreams are just, al-ghathu ahlam, jumbled dreams. And that, even to the extent that if you look at that what psychologists say about dreams and so forth, and that the way that it relates to the subconscious, and that most people's dreams is true. Most people's dreams are nafs. It's a reflection of their own nafs, and that their own self and ego, and the way that affects it, the way that they then see things. But it doesn't negate the fact that when the soul becomes more and more pure, and it taps into its potential, that it can't be effective in a positive way, and someone starts to have that dreams that are of a true nature and that are actually very powerful. So anyhow, that should we move right into the second part and just combine the Q&A at the end? Okay. So this leads us up to, that was all supposed to be introductory, and this leads us up to the first aspect of how we're going to look at an event of Seerah and related to a virtue. Now, it's a bit more difficult to do that in the early stages, especially when you talk about a birth. How could a birth be a virtue? Well, if you look at the word virtue in and of itself, is that most often we associate virtue with character, right? Moral standards, so a way of being that someone, something that someone does, a way that it is. But also in the English language, a virtue could be a good quality of a thing. So it's not just that good character that someone is showing, but also it's a quality of the thing. So you could talk about the virtues of the masjid, the virtues of Unity Center, that they have, a wonderful community who's coming from spend their time on Friday nights to come out and to listen to someone speak. That the virtue of something, the quality of something. So in this regard, that there was definitely virtues that were associated with the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. And that we see this as that if we look at one, his lineage, which we're going to talk about. That two, we look at his names, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we look at his birth. These three aspects, and that we find in them that various virtues. The first of which is what is called divine selection, istifa. This is a very important word. It's a word that should be a part of our religious vocabulary. That likewise, greatness. Then we have mercy and then light. So we will be looking at these in light of these aspects of the Prophet ﷺ's life. Now, if someone would ask you that when does the Seerah begin? What would you say? When does the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ begin? What would you say? Revelation? Sorry? Birth? Young man? Ahsant. طيب, anyone else?
The lineage.
Huh?
The lineage.
The lineage? Okay. Young man, you changed your mind. Huh? Prophecy. So you changed your mind. طيب, that's a big question. When does the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ end? Exactly. So these are big questions. We normally think of the seerah, the first apparent meaning that will come to someone's mind is that the seerah is from the time that the Prophet ﷺ received prophecy until the time that he returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, that is one of the most important aspects of the seerah because those are the 23 years that he received revelation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he also lived 40 years before that, which are also part of his seerah, the proof of which is because he has what are called irhasat, pre-prophetic miracles. Miracles that happened on his hands, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even before he received prophecy. So that definitely is a part of his seerah. And when we look at the 7 different breaking of the norms, is that we have mu'jizat, which are actual miracles that happen, but then the irhasat are those that happened before that he received prophecy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, that at the same time, you could also argue that his seerah begins even before his birth. Why? Because you could talk about his lineage. You could talk about the verse that we quoted last session, about Allah Ta'ala taking a pledge or an oath with every prophet and messenger that were the prophet to have come, that they would have had to believe in him and give victory to him. So in a sense, that if you extend the meanings of his seerah, that you could speak about that. That you could speak about his seerah even if that's confirmed that Adam saw written on the throne, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That there is an authentic hadith that says that I was a prophet while Adam is between water and clay. Subhanallah. What does that mean? Kuntu nabiyyan. Adam wa bayna al-ma'i wal-tin. There's several narrations. Some of them are weak. That wa Adam munjadilatun fi tinatihi. But one of those narrations is authentic, conveying that meaning that there was a reality to the prophet being a prophet while Adam he wasn't needed yet, meaning he wasn't created yet. SubhanAllah. So meaning that in a sense, if you expand the vision of that there was a reality of that even before the creation of Adam. Even if you go the other direction, is that in a sense, yes, in terms of his worldly life, his seerah ended, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you define seerah, right, as that his life here on the face of this earth, yes, you limit it to that. But if you broaden it after that to even part of his life story, it's just a new type of life, which is the life of the barzakh. Because when you die, it's it for you in terms of the worldly life. But every deceased person has a new life. It's a different type of life. It's a life of the barzakh. Now, we're not aware of that life, right? But it's taking place right now as we speak. Every person that passes is moving on. They're in the barzakh right now. And they're experiencing experiences right now as we speak. Now we're still here. And you have an excerpt in and I highly recommend that you read all these things. That there's some very good material here that will really enhance your understanding of these lectures and it will be very helpful. And I would especially encourage some of the younger people to get together in small groups and to read it, and even adults to have study groups to read it. That there is several excerpts here from a book by Imam al-Haddad titled that Sabil al-Ibtikar, which has been translated as The Lives of Man. And he says that there's 5 lives of man, meaning human beings. That the pre-earthly life, the earthly life, the barzakh, the day of judgment, and then one of the 2 final abodes. So that the Prophet ﷺ, there's a reality to him now in the grave. There will be a reality on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and then that forever in paradise. So in that sense, if you expand that meaning of seerah, that it goes on even to abad al-abad, to eternity, that and everything that's going to happen in the future. So that we'll begin just with the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ, and that it was standard for Muslims to memorize the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ. And that the reason is because that there is absolute consensus of the Ummah about the authenticity of the Prophet's lineage up into Adnan. And Adnan is known to have been a direct descendant of Isma'il, who was the son of Ibrahim ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ, that he would mention his lineage. And he quoted his lineage. And that you have that in the handout that is before you, that he is Sayyidina Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abd Manaf, the son of Qusay, the son of Hakim, the son of Murrah, the son of Ka'ab, the son of Luway, the son of Ghalib, the son of Fihr, the son of Malik, the son of Nadr, the son of Kinana, the son of Khuzaymah, the son of Mudrika, the son of Ilyas, the son of Mudar, the son of Nizar, and the son of Ma'ad, and then the son of Adnan. And then he quoted that, and after that he would say, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Kadhab an-Nasabun, the genealogists have lied. So that he would quote his lineage, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that lineage, that taqwa is what's most important, but lineage is also that it's one of the three things that the deen has preserved. It's one of the three ways in which the deen has been preserved. And that lineage is important for a number of reasons. One is that there's ahkam of the sharia, there's legal rulings of the sacred law that pertain to lineage. That you have to understand basic lineage if you're going to know how to distribute that, someone's tariqah, that their legacy that they leave behind, and their estate that they leave behind. That also in terms of that taking care of your family and looking after your family, having family relations. It's important to understand the basics of that. And then just in general, that understanding the way that people work and the different traits that different tribes have and different peoples have, and that culture has, generally speaking, good traits and bad traits, and that there's ways in which that one of the Sadiq righteous said that if you want to know the righteous of any people, that look at, for instance, those people and see that the bad traits that they have and find the ones that have left those bad traits, and then that you will know that they're from the righteous of those people. So if I may pick on Americans, Americans aren't, this is a total gross exaggeration. In general, even though they have what's called Southern hospitality, that if you go to the Muslim world, the hospitality that Muslims have, and in general traditional peoples, wherever they're from, is totally different than the hospitality that you're going to receive that when you come to wherever someone lives. And in general, you're going to receive much better hospitality back home than you do here. And so if you find people here that are extremely generous and like to have guests but help their wives cook, then that, subhanAllah, that's a very good sign. And this is the way that you would then look at this. Right? So that the lineage of the Prophet is important because is that we see that special things about different ancestors of the Prophet. Now, we could have a whole session or two going through one by one, looking at the traits that each one of them have. But that the Prophet ﷺ clearly said that he was blessed in his lineage, that there was no relations that took place outside of wedlock. From all the way back to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. That this is one of the things that our Prophet was blessed with, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That if you look at his father, that Abdullah, and that everything that happened in his life and the type of person he was, and the way that they say that the light of prophecy, that the Prophet's light was seen noticeably in his face, and that if you look at Abdul Muttalib and everything that he did, he was a great man, and that likewise, that all the way down the line, that the Prophet ﷺ had that ancestors that were very distinguished. Now, that there is a hadith that is called the hadith al-istifa, the hadith of divine selection. This is a hadith in Sahih Muslim where our Prophet ﷺ says, "Inna Allah istafa," that indeed Allah chose Kinana min walidi Ismail, from the children or from the progeny of Ishmael. وَاصْطَفَى قُرَيْشًا مِنْ وَلِدِ كِنَانَةَ. He chose Quraysh from the progeny of Kinana, then he chose Hashim from the progeny of Quraysh, and he chose me from the progeny of Bani Hashim. In another narration, that there's different, that this is a hadith in Sahih Muslim, but there's other narrations that specify different aspects of this istifa. Is that never did two branches of lineage split except the Prophet ﷺ was in the better of the two. So never did two branches of lineage split from the time of Adam. That he was khiyar min khiyar. Every time that the branches split, that he was in the better of the two, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is part of his perfection. Now, that someone who doesn't have noble lineage in the end, that anyone can attain piety and taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is part of his perfection. And this is why that the Heraclius, he asked Abu Sufyan and his group, is that what was the lineage? Because the prophets all came from the noble lineages. This was just part of of prophecy, is that they were granted noble lineages. And so that it's very important for us to